Today, we're diving into Adhyatmika, the ancient Hindu path of spiritual practice. And this isn't just about faith or belief, It's a really deep exploration into the mechanics of consciousness, discipline, and reality itself. Our guide for this journey is Rajarshi Nandy's work, Adhyatmikata, Explorations into Hindu Spiritual Practices. We're going to be using the frameworks he lays out in his texts to help us navigate this, pretty complex and totally fascinating spiritual world.
So, let's just kick things off with a question that, honestly, many of us have probably asked ourselves at some point. Are you spiritual or are you just religious? It sounds simple, right? But that distinction is really at the heart of everything we're about to get into.
All right, so let's tackle our first big idea. What is true spirituality, really? It's so easy to get it mixed up with cultural traditions or holidays, but the core of it, the Adhyatma, that goes so much deeper. And you know what? This isn't some new age question. In the Bhagavad Gita, the great warrior Arjuna asks Krishna basically the same thing. He's not asking about rituals or beliefs. He wants to know the real, tangible signs. How can you actually recognize a truly spiritual person just by how they live their life? And Krishna's answer is just profound. He says that true spirituality has nothing to do with outward shows. It's all about inner mastery. It's about staying balanced, not getting too high with the highs or too low with the lows. It's this ability to control your senses and your reactions, kind of like how a tortoise can just pull its limbs into its shell to protect itself. It's a state of being, not just a to-do list. So if that's the goal, how in the world do you even start to get there? Well, you need what we can call the Seeker's Toolkit. These are the essential practices for anyone who wants to begin this journey. And the foundation of that whole toolkit is Sanatana. This is your personal, dedicated spiritual practice. Now think of it less like a casual 5-minute meditation here and there, and more like a disciplined, super consistent effort. The source material suggests at least an hour or two every single day. It requires this total alignment of your mind, your body, and your spirit. Without that consistency, you just don't build any real momentum. Now, here's where the text makes a really crucial distinction. On one hand, you've got orthodoxy. These are the social and cultural customs, the stuff that can change over time. But then you've got orthopraxy, and that's the strict, unwavering commitment to the method of a ritual. The author argues this part is non-negotiable. It's like a spiritual technology that was designed by ancient masters. If you start messing with the how, you risk losing the results entirely. So where does a beginner start? The text offers a really simple but powerful first sadhana. Step 1, pick a focus, a deity or a text that really speaks to you. Step 2, commit to that practice time, no excuses. And step 3, and this is huge, bring discipline to the rest of your life. What you eat, when you sleep, even how you talk. It all becomes part of the work. Of course, this journey is rarely taken alone. For most people, a guide is pretty essential. Which brings us to the absolutely crucial role of the guru. And listen, we're not just talking about any teacher here. We're talking about a Sat Guru. This is a true master, someone who hasn't just read the maps, but has actually been to the destination. They've achieved siddhi, or mastery, and they have this direct connection that lets them guide other people in a way that's truly effective. Ramana Maharshi had this amazing analogy for it. He said, to imagine the spiritual path is like a giant mountain. A Satguru is the one person who has already made it to the peak. From way up there, they can see all the different paths everyone else is taking below. They have the complete view so they can give the best directions. Okay, but this brings up a really practical and, frankly, important question. In this day and age, with so many spiritual brands out there, is it okay to be skeptical? Should you test a potential guru before you put your trust in them? The book shares this fascinating story about the great saint Ramakrishna. To test his non-attachment to worldly things, his own disciples snuck some money under his bed. When he went to sleep, he just couldn't do it. He complained that something was physically disturbing him. And when he found out they were testing him, he wasn't mad at all. He actually told them it was fair and proper to do so. The message there is pretty clear. Being cautious and using your own judgment is just plain wrong. But what if you haven't found that external guide yet? Well, the texts talk about an inner guru, something called viveka. This is your own built-in power of discrimination, that little voice inside that helps you tell the difference between what's true and what's false. Learning to actually hear and trust that internal compass is one of the most vital skills you can develop on this path. All right, now this path isn't all, peace and blissful light. There are some very real dangers, really subtle traps that can completely derail even the most sincere person. So let's look at some of the challenges you might run into. Sri Aurobindo gives this incredibly stark warning about a place he calls the intermediate zone. This is a super tricky stage where a seeker might start having powerful experiences, seeing visions, lights, feeling a sense of power, but it's all a mix of half-truths and what he calls cosmic ignorance. It's this dazzling illusion that can trap people, making them think they've already arrived at the finish line when they've really barely started the race. And this really highlights the huge difference between a simple experience and true realization. Ramakrishna had a brilliant analogy for this too. He said most people are like small water tanks. Any big spiritual experience comes along and the water spills right over. They get all excited, they can't contain it. But a true master is like a huge pond. Even the biggest fish can swim around in there and you'd barely see a ripple on the surface. Realization is permanent. It's silently woven into the very fabric of who you are. So what's the ultimate obstacle here? It's not how hard the practices are, and it's not even the dangers of that intermediate zone. According to the texts, the single greatest barrier is the I sense, the ego. It is the master trickster, the part of us that fights against transformation with everything it's got, because, well, its very survival is on the line. So, if a seeker can navigate all these dangers and start to move beyond the ego, what's waiting at the end of the path? We finally arrived at the culmination of the journey, encountering the divine. Now, the Hindu concept of devatas can sometimes be misunderstood. It's not about worshiping a whole bunch of separate gods. It's more about seeing the one supreme being showing up in different cosmic personalities, where each one represents a specific job or power, like the creator, the sustainer, or the one who removes obstacles. They're all just different faces of a single unified reality. And the ultimate state, the very nature of that supreme being, is described as Sat, Chit, Ananda. These are its three core qualities. Sat, which is unchanging reality, Chit, which is pure consciousness, and Ananda, which is just profound bliss. This is the goal that all these spiritual paths are ultimately pointing towards. But we really shouldn't underestimate what it takes to get there. The ancient Upanishads, they don't sugarcoat it one bit. They state that this path is incredibly difficult, as dangerous, in fact, as walking on the edge of a razor, where just one tiny misstep can lead you way off course. And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to think about. If the path truly is a razor's edge, where does the real danger lie? Is the greatest obstacle the treacherous path itself? Or is it the unsteady, illusion-loving ego that we're all forced to walk it with?